All right, everyone, welcome back to Oculi Rebus. This is your host, the man, the myth, the unlegendary one himself, Mike Ellis, with that MEE Mike Ellis experience. As usual, this episode is produced by John Solis and is a Yuckfo production. This episode is probably going to bore most of you guys. It's kind of a build upon for probably next week's episode, which I know I lied to you guys about what I was going to talk about this week. My content is king. I might do a bonus episode about that, might not, who knows. But anyways, so the episode I was going to do is about content and how content is king, and there's a large swath of conservatives and all that want to sit here and lambast Facebook, Instagram, and all that. I know I do it, but I'm going to defend my actions at some point. Maybe it won't be next week. Well, who knows? No. Here I am stumbling. I might do a bonus episode. I don't know. But we came to pass on another holiday. Another holiday that's being washed. Now here's the thing about this. I didn't want to do this episode until I wanted to do a different episode. But then me wanting to do the different episode made me want to do this episode. It's kind of problematic, but I think it's two-faced. They go together. They're completely different, but they go together. Like, they're polar opposites. They have nothing to do with each other, but they go together. So you're just going to have to listen to both episodes. Hopefully that gets the viewership up, right? So, in 1492, Kruger sailed the ocean blue. Oh, wait, we're getting close to Halloween. That was a Freddy Krueger thing from Freddy's Dead, I think, was that one. 89, 90. Oh, it's my favorite one. Rosie O'Donnell's even in it. My, how she has fallen. And I don't think she really should have fallen that far. We're going to get to why. We're going to kind of not talk about Rosie O'Donnell, but we're going to talk about somebody later. And we're going to make a slight connection. So this episode, I don't know how long this is going to be, to be honest with you. It could be pretty damn short. But, hey teacher, leave us kids alone. So Columbus Day is celebrated up and down throughout most of the Americas. It has different names, but it's all surmised to be essentially Columbus Day, the day that Columbus navigated to and discovered what is considered to be America. Now, he set sail in 1492, as previously stated when I made the Freddy Krueger joke about Freddy's Dead. Now, when he made it here, though, his first land was in the Bahamas, and he met a tribe there, and things happen, whatever, right? It wasn't until years later that he made it to mainland America. But when he made it to the Bahamas, though, this dumb guy thought he was in Japan. They didn't have GPS back then. Like, come on, what the hell? And so before anybody starts sitting here and says, well, back then they thought the world was flat. Many people did back then. Not everybody. What they didn't know was that the Pacific Ocean, I think it was. Yeah, Pacific Ocean. They didn't know that it existed. And so, the more you know, right? So, let's see. What was the name of the tribe that he found? I know I got that right here written down somewhere. The Taino, I think it was, right? The Taino tribe. Yeah, he thought it was Japan, but it was the Bahamas, and it was the Taino tribe. That was the very first tribe he actually met. And so he went back to the gracious king of Spain who let him travel, right? And he did take some, quote-unquote, slaves, some workers, something like that. So I know we're already over here talking down about how bad a guy this really is, right? If you haven't caught the picture, this just has to do with the fact that Columbus Day is no longer Columbus Day. It's Indigenous People Day. But we'll get there, I promise, okay? So let's talk about the evil that men do. All right. So Columbus did have a convert or die kind of philosophy with some of the Indians, some of the natives. Let's go with natives, right? He thought they were like a speed bump in some cases. And he also brought disease. We can't say that he didn't. But with that being said, they also brought medicine, spice, and different technologies. And, you win some, lose some, huh? So the three tribes that he met, the first three, right? So it was the Teneo. Teneo is what it was. I'm sorry. The Teneo. Okay. I'm going to mention a lot of Indian tribes here. I am part Native American, Apache, Comanche. There's something else in there I can't really remember. I'm not like Elizabeth Warren. I'm not lying about it. But I can't pronounce all their names. So if you are a card-carrying member, please do not be offended by the fact that I can't pronounce the name. Some of these sound like they're Indian names, for lack of better words. I'm sorry, I couldn't miss that one. All right, so the Teneo, and it looks like for the most part, they were kind of for the little few minutes of research that I did, they seem to be a very peaceful tribe. They just kind of had their own thing going on. But notice they were also in the Bahamas. It's kind of an island area, right? So how much more was there at the time? I don't mean that in a bad way either. Oh, excuse me. And then there was the Arawaks and the Caribs. Now, the Arawaks were hunter-gatherer. They were kind of nice and all that fun stuff. Now, the Caribs, they were a warring tribe. They wanted to take as much land as they could, and they also kind of were cool with cannibalism. So that was the thing. And so the Caribs and the not the Teneos, the Arawaks were in the Native American area, right, where we have the 13 colonies, and so those are the first ones he met. So right off the bat, 50% of them wanted to rip his fucking head off. The other 50% kind of welcomed him, and there was a lot of working together and all that stuff. The whole war thing didn't come until years later. Okay, now granted, yes, he did have some murdered, and he did it for his own reasons, and he did take some back. But we're going to get to the whole taking them back in a little while, right? Now, the Arquas, they're a peaceful tribe, like I said. They were known for having a huge spirituality and faith system and a leadership hierarchy. So there was this really developed kind of centrist, centrist group as far as like a left-right, the way that we typically use it. But I mean centrist as far as they were centralized. They had their shit together. They kind of knew what they were doing, you know. Not to say that they couldn't have. They had for what they had what they had, and they were doing great. All right. So again, the Caribs, warring cannibals, right? Now, here's one thing that a lot of people don't really understand. A lot of people want to ignore. Just the same way we got Africans to be slaves, by and large, was the same way that we got the Native Americans to be slaves. They gave them to us in trade. I'm going to say that again. They gave them to us in trade. I don't say us, but because I can't say us because I'm part Indian, right? I was there at one point. I wasn't, and we'll get to that later. But it's interesting. Now, back then, the old world, which you can call it the old world versus the new world. New world is nowish, okay? So the old world, it wasn't a right or a wrong. It was a way of life. I'm not here to defend something and say that it was right or wrong. I'm just here to tell you that the perception back then was this is right, this is acceptable. There was no laws against it. Now, you could be as upset as you want about it, but realistically, like, the Native Americans were giving away their weak or whatever the case was in the form of slaves, or they're imprisoned because, again, they did fight a lot too. They were giving them up because they wanted the spices, the animals, all that stuff, the medicine and everything to fight the diseases that we brought. But, excuse me. By the way, I've been terribly sick, so doing this episode has been very last minute, and I hope you guys forgive me for that. So that's kind of where we're at on this, though. The Native Americans gave themselves up initially. Not themselves, gave their own people up initially. Of course, throughout more recent history, when we waged war against them and the French did and all this other stuff, then yes, there was a certain level of imprisonment and forced labor and all that kind of came with it. But to me, that's a whole different thing. It has nothing to do with Columbus. And so we're going to continue to talk about Columbus because I think that's what this is really about. And so one thing that I find kind of really interesting is, this episode's going to be damn short. Well, I don't know. I guess my thoughts might linger a little bit longer. But one thing I find interesting is, right, we don't want to say, All right, so let's get the Columbus Day thing out of the way first, right? So Columbus didn't directly destroy the Native Americans. You can make an indirect argument if you want, and I would think that's flawed. And here's the thing, too. You're going to hate Christopher Columbus because of what the colonists did 100 years later. Can I be mad at a German because his great-great-great-grandfather was a Nazi? I thought we were above that as people. Actually, hold on. No. Let me paint a better picture. Can I hate a German today for the acts of Germany of yesterday? Now it sounds silly, doesn't it? But we can only do it when it affects things of national pride in America. Let that sink in for a minute. Everybody wants to be an asshole about it. Nobody wants to talk about it. All right, so natives is non-offensive, right? When you look at Native Americans is non-offensive. Now, small groups consider it to be offensive because it's not inclusive. Not inclusive. It's non-selective, meaning, well, you're saying Native Americans, that's grouping us all together. We were different. There's a whole plethora of us tribes out there. Why do I have to be grouped with them? They sucked. We're better. So someone takes offense. And so we use the word indigenous. To me, we're just going to cheapen the blow because people don't know what indigenous means. Get the fuck out of here. To me, Indigenous Day is going to be celebrated at Joe Biden CC pizza celebration. Look out, because that's how much value we're putting into it these days. Not only that, why did we have to take Columbus Day and repurpose it? I'm sorry. If you were poor when you were younger, I don't want to say poor. You were of lower class. You were lower class when you were younger, and you got your big brother's basketball on Christmas as a repurposed gift. Did you enjoy it? I fucking didn't. I got a lot of that. Well, not really. I didn't get a lot of that, but I got some of that. They were just going to repurpose you a whole holiday because we're too fucking stupid to give you your own. Oh, and by the way, we're not going to call it Native Americans because we don't care that you were native to America. We're just going to call you the indigenous people, the people that were there. Now, granted, they were here when it wasn't America. But to me, the idea of saying Native American brings it together. It's saying you guys were the natives to this land that became known as America. And we want to honor you. We want to give you, we want to cherish you on this, week, month, day, year, however you want to look at it. I don't care. I personally am against a lot of these special days and special months. To me, it's all a load of crap. But yeah, Indigenous People Day instead of Columbus Day because we couldn't give them their own day. And we just had to say that fuck Christopher Columbus because he's an asshole or something, right? Yeah, exactly. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me either. But take a quick commercial break. Actually, no, we're not going to take a quick commercial break yet. We're going to talk about some stuff that's going to lead to the arrest, the prosecution, and the imprisonment of the Clintons themselves. All right, so I'm not a union guy. By and large, I kind of despise most unions. I think there's a necessary evil in some aspects, but most of it is just an evil that's not necessary. So I had the opportunity to it was on the radio. I was listening to an interview with the labor president from Southwest Airlines. Southwest Airlines is based out of Texas. They've always been the redhead stepchild, right? And so they were talking about the walkout that we had this past weekend. And he clarifies, and there was not a walkout. There was just a few more extra pilots that were sick with COVID, so they had to run through the mill and fix as much as they could without having a catastrophic issue. And so what I thought was interesting, he explained that unlike the other airline companies, these planes, they fly out and they go back to the little hubs. That's it. Like, it's not It's not like these big ones where they fly out and they end up back at land at the end of the day. So when their planes are out, their planes are out. Like, that's kind of how they do it, which I think is interesting. But he did say that he will support the pilots who refuse to get the vaccination. Now, this kind of goes against, but I don't say against, but it kind of does go against what the CEO of Southwest Airlines said with that they will deal with, or they will keep up with the Biden administration mandate, the executive order. And so that kind of bothered me because I was like, well, there's not a real executive order out there for private companies and stuff. It's mainly to do, the only executive order out right now is federal employees and government contracts. Southwest Airlines has a 2% government contract, meaning 2% of its work comes from the federal government. If it was me, I would just fucking cut that because I don't want to lose half my pilots because half the pilots are ex-military. And they're saying about 50% of the pilots don't want to get the vaccination. So if I had to pick which side they were on, I'm going to go, it's probably more so along the lines of that. But nonetheless, so this guy's out there saying that, like, the union itself does not support the vaccination mandate, and there is no questions that have been answered yet in regards to the mandate itself. So I know I said something that there is no mandate out there. There's one executive order. All right, so a lot of these companies and everything out there are trying to force employees to get it. There's no decree out there. I remember if you go to a car dealer, you get it in writing, right, people? Because if not, then you're not going to get those fancy the window tint. You're not going to get it because you didn't get it in fucking writing. You got to pay attention. Handshakes mean nothing. And when Biden was up there a couple of weeks ago saying this is the mandate, 100 employees, yada, 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 there is no executive order. He just said it to say it. That's who he is right now. And I think it's because he knows an executive order is not going to stand. So instead, what does he do? Instead of the buck stopping with him, he kicked that fucking trash can to OSHA, and OSHA's like, we don't know what to do about this now, because OSHA knows that they have no room. There's no legality. So, and then you have Sake up there, Jan Sake, up there every single time saying that it's lawful, it's legal. Well, where's the proof? If it is, can't you show me how it is? Show me why it is. Don't just tell me. I'm not ignorant. I'm not stupid. Show me the proof. All right, this next clip is a little vulgar. It's by one of the, probably the greatest modern comedian, and that's because George Carlin's dead. But here's Dave Chappelle, everybody. Listen to this.
Woman to be on earth. That is...
let me start over.
...a fact.
Come on.
Now, I am not saying that to say that trans women aren't women. I am just saying that those pussies that they got, you know what I mean? I'm not saying it's not pussy, but that's like beyond pussy or impossible pussy. You know what I mean? It tastes like pussy, but that's not quite what it is it? It's not blood, that's beet juice.
All right, so I'm going to play the first part again just because I guess I started it too late. But here it is.
Gender is a fact. This is a fact. Every human being in this room, every human being on earth had to pass through the legs of a woman to be on earth.
So he's under attack right now for his newest Netflix special, The Closer. I have not had the liberty to listen to it or watch it, yet, but I will. But here's the thing. He had these... the trans community is upset about it. Oh, fucking well. If you don't like it, don't listen to it, right? But here's what I find funny. So some of the workers at Netflix, they went on Twitter, they lambasted Netflix for featuring Dave Chappelle, considering he's obviously homophobic. And the next thing that came out was they got put on, leave. Then the next thing that came out was, well, those two trans women also broke through and interrupted a very highly ranking meeting. That's why they were sent home. But Let's not look at his joke, which his joke is actually really accurate. Gender is a fact, right? They want to talk about science all the time. Well, there's some fucking science for you. But here's the thing. He's a comedian. I'm sorry, that should be one of the most protected professions. It is the only profession that I can think of that from beginning to end is freedom of speech. And not only that, and the reason I say it is from beginning to end the freedom of speech, because lawyers, they lie to us all the time. The media lies to us all the time. And we all see that. We know that. So it's not freedom of speech. The media is lying to us, and they're doing it for the purpose of selling an agenda. A comedian is doing it for the purpose of making you fucking laugh, maybe making you think a little bit. That should be a protected profession. You could disagree with what they say. You can call him an idiot, and you can support your argument with facts that probably are not as funny as his, and you're free to do so. But to sit there and say deplatform, cancel culture, send him home, and all this other stuff, he's not the first comedian to have faced this. But here's the thing. Good fucking luck. I know the first episode I talk about getting a constitutional convention together. I think you have a better chance of doing that than getting Dave Chappelle shit canned for this. The guy's got too much respect. And he's way too smart. All you're doing is making him richer. Because guess what? I don't even have Netflix. Guess what I'm going to get? Just to watch him, then I'm going to cancel it. Good job, trannies. Good job. All right, so I really hope this one doesn't start off at the beginning, the middle as well. Let's see.
Governor Abbott's executive order banning mandates, and I would also note announcement by Governor DeSantis this morning, essentially banning the implementation of mandates, fit a familiar pattern that we've seen of putting politics ahead of public health. Over 700,000 American lives have been lost due to COVID-19, including more than 56,000 in Florida and over 68,000 in Texas. And every leader should be focused on supporting efforts to save lives and end the pandemic. Why would you be taking steps that prevent the saving of lives, that make it more difficult to save lives across the country or in any state? And I would also note that vaccine requirements have been standard in both the Lone Star State, Texas, in case you're not familiar, and the Sunshine State, Florida, in schools for decades, whether polio, measles, mumps, rubella, the chickenpox.
All right, everybody called her Peppermint Patty today, and that made me laugh inside and outside and all around. That's Peppermint Patty. That sucks because that ruins the character from the Peanuts. So I played that whole thing because I wanted to make sure I catch the thing about the rubella and the measles and blah, 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 blah. All right, so the entire time they've been attacking, let's focus on Florida because Texas was kind of late to the game on this. Texas did all the lockdowns. They did all these other things, yada, yada, yada. And they finally were like, damn, Florida, you're doing something right. It should have been the other way around. Fucking Texas. Yeah, you're supposed to lead the conservative movement, but you're not. Florida is on this one. So let's just talk about Florida first. Okay. She said 60,000 or 58,000, I think was the number. Okay. You want to talk about New York? You want to talk about New Jersey? You want to talk about California? Or we're going to ignore those numbers because it doesn't fit the narrative. Now, mind you, New York, California, and New Jersey, they did everything you asked them to do. Everything. Florida said, suck a fart through a bag and did nothing. Were there times where it was worse in Florida? Yes, but it was never an irregular situation past the threshold of what was considered normal nationwide. And right now, what you also are having in Florida is the second lowest COVID rate in America that's being reported. So, hold on. For him not caring, his state's doing pretty damn well. Now, again, I always tell everybody, look at the science, draw your own conclusion. I'm not your fucking doctor, all right? But Florida never had that issue, and there's a large population of elderly folks in Florida. He protected them. They had the COVID swab testing sites, the COVID vaccination sites. They did the Regeneron I can think of the word, they did like the Regeneron sites and all this other stuff to protect the people. And you have Biden who fakes a whole Regeneron scarceness of the drug. And it's like, well, people called the company. They're like, yeah, there's no shortage. We got you. Matter of fact, we're sending this shit overseas because we have a plethora of it because nobody else is using it. Okay. All right. I don't really know what to say about that. But it pisses me off. I could say that. It makes me irate to know that she's sitting here saying they're playing politics by saying no mandate when they played politics the whole time with this. Not only did they play politics the whole time with this, they refuse to admit that there's other methods out there. It doesn't fit their fucking agenda. It's politics. You're correct. It's politics when you have Governor Cuomo out there saying, oh, I would never get the Trump vaccine. I didn't realize Trump left, Biden came in, and they just, 2 years of research just flipped on a fucking dime and it's a different vaccine. I didn't realize that Kamala Harris saying, well, people rightfully so wouldn't trust a Trump vaccine. Same thing. Same thing. I think Gavin Newsom said it too. I think. There's a lot of these people in these high-ranking Republican positions who said, hell no, I wouldn't get that Democratic positions. Hell no, I wouldn't get that vaccine. It's a Trump vaccine. Why would I trust it? But now, that's not playing politics. You're fucking out of your mind. But this is. Giving freedom of choice is playing politics. Last I heard, freedom of choice is called playing America. All right, so trying to get ahead of another story. Social Security is having its largest raises is pension raises. That's kind of what it really is in recent history. All right, so I'm pretty sure the Biden administration, whether it's coming up for the next midterm or the next presidential election, is going to tout the biggest Social Security raise, or Social Security increase in pays to our elderly folks. Okay, but let's talk about why it's happening. Look how much shit costs because you're doing a terrible job logistically in every aspect of America right now. Inflation's through the roof. Fuel prices are through the roof. People can't afford to do this anymore. And your answer is throw some money at it. And that way in about a year to 2 years, 3 years, I could say, well, look, Social Security, we gave them the most money. Yeah, we're not. I don't say we're not, because a lot of us are stupid. But we're not all stupid, okay, Joe? Or excuse me, Brandon? We're not all stupid. So get off that. Get off that wacky tobacco. And now it's time to circle back to our regular programming with today's episode. All right, so this is the part of the episode where I'm going to butcher probably a few states' names in the process and every damn Indian, or excuse me, Native American tribe name that I can. All right, so I compiled a list. So I'll say the state, or before I get started. All right, there's I'm going to say 14 different states. There's 13 original colonies, right? So obviously not, there was a split. I hope you know what it was, but we'll get to that one later if we have to. All right, Connecticut, Pequot, and what became known as the Mohicans. Delaware, the Natico, and the Lenni Lenape. And Georgia had the Creek and the Cherokee. Maryland had the Ostaquay and Sosochwate and the et al. Massachusetts and Maine, those are the ones that were together, had Massachusetts had the Wampanoag, the Nowest, and the Massachusetts and et al. Maine had the Micmac and the Abenaki, Wabanaki tribes. New Hampshire had the Pennacook and the Abenaki. Jersey had the Lenape. North Carolina had the Hot Terra, Cherokee, the Catawba, and the et al. PA had the Shawnee and the Senese and the et al. Rhode Island had the Narragansett, the Nepok, and the Etal. South Carolina had the Yamasee, the Catawala, and the Cherokee. Virginia had the Patawahin and Etal. So I started looking at these different Indian tribes, and I was like, okay, let's see which tribes warred together. All of them. Throughout their history, they all warred together. It wasn't a matter of us coming here that led. Maybe we did speed up the process with Columbus coming here. I can't argue against that, but you also can't argue for it because you don't know. You can't prove this. There's no tangible fact out there. But a lot of these tribes made alliances with each other and they fought each other in some very bloody wars. That's a fact. I also decided to look up like war tribes, right? Just to see what I could get. And you got to get Cherokee and stuff like that. But then there was a special group of tribes. And then it was cannibal tribes. So I clicked on that and named like 2 or 3. And then it said, and other Texan tribes. So even though we weren't that far over yet, especially when Columbus was here, especially about 100 years later when we had more colonization and all that, but there was tribes down there that were fucking eating each other. They weren't even killing each other. I mean, obviously they were, but they were, I'm hungry. I'm going to eat your redskin. Oh, come on. That's in good taste. But no, like they warred. They did that. And it was funny because I forgot what tribe it was. Like literally says hunter-gatherer. But then when I looked up this other tribe, it was like had an alliance with this tribe. And when this tribe went and fought, they went with them and helped. And I'm like, that's fucking crazy. So everyone's so worried about the Native Americans. And I'm going to call them that because they're native to the Americas, to what we know as America today. And they want to give Indigenous People Day, which is to me a bigger fucking disservice than not giving them a day at all. Especially since you want to do it on the backside of Columbus's day. You could even be original enough to give them their own fucking day. And people who celebrate Columbus are the heartless ones, right? Yeah, well, these things are fucking lazy. They pick their own day and they run with it. So I don't care. I personally don't think there needs to be an Indigenous Peoples Day. I don't think there needs to be a Black History Month. I don't think there needs to be a Mexican History Month. I don't think there needs to be any of these. Pan-Asian History Month, Asian History Month. I don't think it needs to exist. What we need to do is look at our communities and have genuine community outreach to these other communities. We should learn to mix and mingle, have better understandings of the cultures that are dying. We owe that. How disingenuous do you have to be to say, I'm going to force you to fucking learn? Isn't that critical race theory? Yeah, except that's really wrong. Like everything in it, none of that even fucking makes sense. None of it checks out. But that's where we're at right now. We're gonna sit here and prop up a group of people for a day, or a month, or a week, just so we can feel better about the fact that we maybe have been disloyal to them when it comes to treating them like human beings. And that's what this episode's really about. Now, I said washing at the beginning. We're going to get into washing next week. I need to plan early for next week's episode because there's a lot of data in there I need to get. Not a lot of information I need to get, I should say. So, we're just washing it all away right now, right? And it's funny because it's not helping anybody. Matter of fact, if anything, it's hurting. Because I still think it's very important to learn about who Christopher Columbus was, to learn that he did find what is the modern-day Americas in finding the Bahamas and then going to Plymouth Rock. It is important to know that he did meet these Indian tribes. It is important to know that he did break bread with them. He also enslaved some. It is also important to know that the Native Americans, traded some of their own people for fucking spices and animals. But no, it's only the white people that do wrong in America, right? Like, that's it. And Columbus is fucking Spanish. Why are you fucking with him so much? Oh, it's because he's not the right kind of skinned Spanish type people, huh? If you really want to give Native Americans a day, give them a real fucking day. Give them their own day and stop taking it off of Columbus, who had no idea that this was all what it was going to come down to. I think he died of syphilis, too. Like, guy had a bad rap from beginning to end. He didn't have a GPS, died of syphilis, and found what became the most prosperous nation in all time. So yeah, if you really want to show the indigenous people, by that I mean the Native Americans, that you give a shit about them, then show it. Make Native American Day. And the reason I say that's more important than indigenous people is because indigenous people also means, because indigenous doesn't mean like things that are found naturally, or like the natives, if you will. So Native Europeans can also celebrate Indigenous People Day because Europeans are indigenous to Europe, and like China can celebrate it too because Chinese are indigenous to China. Mexicans in Mexico because they're indigenous to Mexico. You see what I'm saying? At least the Native Americans knew that it had to do with the Native Americas, and we at least honored it that much. Give them a fucking day if you want. I don't care. But give them a day. Don't cut and paste and throw it on top of somebody else's day and act like you really give a shit. And on top of that, I know what it's about. You're not going to lie to me and fool me here. It's, well, we don't like Columbus and what he did, so we want to take his day away and put this other day in place. That's not how this works, guy. Because we're not sitting here and honoring everything Columbus did. Excuse me. We're honoring the fact that he founded America on that day. It's called Columbus Day because he was the guy that did it. Does that make sense? If it doesn't make sense, I don't know what else to say. But in typical fashion, oh no, see, I keep messing this up again. Look at me, I am dumb. Alright, everyone. I know that kind of got you loud in the ears. Get on the Instagram, the Facebook, the Instagram, Oculi_Rebus, the Facebook, Oculi Rebus, Mike Ellis, the Twitter, @OARebus, the Tumblr, Oculi Rebus, and Mike Ellis. Yeah, we're on all that shit now. There's a getter, but I haven't done anything on there yet. But typical fashion, I can go on and on, but it's time to move on. Mike Ellis, out.